Hello and welcome to the Steel Sports Podcast. We're back. We're better than ever. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, wherever you may be. We're back. Episode 2. Co-host Martin Brown with me. How you doing, Martin?
I am good, Nathan. How are you? It's been a couple of weeks. What have you been up to?
I haven't been as busy as you, traveling all over the world, Europe, all over the United States. I'm surprised we continued down for this episode.
I know it's been a couple of weeks of a lot of travel. I think I did 6 countries in 10 days in Europe with our parent company at Steel Sports, Steel Partners. Got to go to the Paralympics, which I know we'll talk about later. I was in Chicago this past weekend, which I know we'll talk a little bit about later as well. So yeah, it's been definitely a whirlwind tour for the last couple of weeks, but it was good. It was fun and exciting. So nice to see a lot of different places. So.
Yeah, glad we could connect and do another episode here. I know there's been a lot of things going on in sports, but
yeah, it's never a dull moment in sports.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
You've been keeping up with baseball?
I've been keeping up with baseball. There's been obviously the big news, which I know you're going to tell us all about, is the Shohei Ohtani, the 50-50, achieving that, which was huge. I know the chase was on for a long time, but he got there. So tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's just a unicorn. I mean, that's what it boils down to. I mean, just amazing. I mean, knew he was going to get to 40-40, and then when the discussion came up, could he get to 50-50? And there's some debate, and then he just is completely turned it on. And I mean that game when he got the 50-50 club, hitting 3 home runs, 10 RBI. I think he had 2 stolen bases in the game. I mean, just incredible. And for a guy that just had a procedure on his elbow, he wasn't going to be able to pitch this year. Now as a full-time DH. I mean, there's really nothing that this guy can't do. And I think we've seen his greatness for a number of years, and we saw him in the World Baseball Classic with Japan. But I mean, he's just been on a whole nother level when it comes to hitting and the speed and what he brings to the game. I mean, it's unbelievable.
So my question for you, because I've seen a lot of this on my Instagram feed and Facebook feed about Ohtani and the 50-50 chase after he got to 40-40. Let me ask you, because what's popped up a lot is the statistics of Ohtani and versus the statistics of Barry Bonds. So real simple, would you have Bonds or would you have Ohtani?
Well, if I have the pitcher, Shohei Ohtani, I mean, I'm probably taking Ohtani. I mean, obviously, I watched Bonds growing up, and performance enhancing aside,
Yeah.
I mean, he was incredible. I mean, every at bat was must watch in his prime, especially when he was with the Giants. But I mean, even when he was with the Pirates, he had a lot of speed. He was kind of a different player than he was when he went to San Francisco. But I mean, I think if I had the full package, if I had the complete player, and if I can have a pitcher, a guy who can be a Cy Young, a guy who can be an ace, and a guy who can do what he does at the plate and carry a team, I'd probably take Ohtani.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, obviously Bonds had a much higher on base percentage career-wise. It really does get into that steroids era, right? And that's always the issue I think that baseball is going to have with comparing stars from certain different times, particularly when we talk about that era, because would Bonds' numbers been as good for as long? Can Ohtani do that without the things that were in the steroid era? It's definitely interesting to see, but I certainly get the take. If he can do what he can do at the plate, and he can stay healthy and do what he can do on the mound, I mean, I can definitely see why you wouldn't take somebody like him in your team, and you'd be the first name on the team sheet every time. I think for that alone, you tell me, anybody else that stands out to you that has ever done both at that level. I don't think so in the history of the game. So that is a unicorn.
I mean, you have to go back to Babe Ruth.
Right.
Really.
Yeah.
You have to go back to Babe Ruth. And then, he was a pitcher and obviously could hit and then just stopped pitching altogether when he went to the Yankees. But yeah, I mean, it's really those two in terms of what they did on the mound and at the plate.
Interestingly, obviously being a youth sports organization, I did also read a quote from a scout that had said about Ohtani, I think it was back in about 2016, that he would never hit big league pitching. That was the report that he never would hit. He wouldn't hit big league pitching, and I think it goes to show that, particularly to our young baseball players, what you do at 12, 14, 16, it might mean nothing. You've got to be determined. You've got to practice. You've got to have good coaches. You've got to have people that can believe in you. And then you can go on and you can do something. For him to be told only 8 years ago he would never hit big league pitching, and he's just hit 50 home runs, this year alone. I think it's a good message to those young baseball players out there to make sure you're determined, you keep practicing. If you're going to have failures, you're going to have people that don't believe in you. You get back up and you keep working hard. And there's, our inspiration at Steel Sports said, Tommy Lasorda, you got to believe. And if you believe in yourself, I think you can go on and do things like Ohtani's done in the game today. So
even year to year, and because Dave Roberts, his manager, brought up the fact that he was a decent base stealer. His percentages in terms of, steal rate weren't great, really. But Dave Roberts talked about how he worked tirelessly in the offseason to just really improve the art of stealing bases, because a lot goes into it in terms of reading the pitchers and watching their movements and their pick plays and timing and everything. So he talked about how relentless he was in the off season to really work on that aspect of his game. So, I mean, even just year to year, you can always improve. And I think for a guy like Shohei Ohtani, I mean, he's the best that we have right now, but he's just so dedicated to his craft that, he's going to work to get every aspect better. You can always improve, and he's proven
that's
that.
The message. That's the message to all of these youth baseball players out there playing, and everybody thinking, maybe what they're doing now, that's going to translate into a D1 scholarship. But if you don't keep working at it and working at it and working at it, it's such a technical sport, baseball, and it's so precise. You have to have that consistency in your technique over and over and over again. If you're not going to perfect that or work hard to perfect it, it's never going to happen to you over time. And he's a good example of, like, as you just said, even as a professional making $700 million a year at the Dodgers, he's out there and he's working hard to improve his technique, whether it's base running, whether it's hitting. And I'm sure once he's back and if he can, pitch, it'll be doing the same with pitching. So great example for all of the youth baseball players that are out there across the country, as well. So, well, obviously we're getting to nearly October, so it can only mean one thing in the baseball world. Give us your take on the added wild cards, excitement going through. What is your prediction for the eventual champion, World Series champion? What do you take?
I think it's as wide open as it's ever been. Which, I mean, you're not going to have a team that is going to go into the playoffs winning 100 games. It seems like almost every team has a shot. I mean, granted, if you make the playoffs, you're the only team, the teams with a shot. But I really feel like every team could have a chance to win the World Series. It's that wide open. So, I look at a team like the Phillies. I mean, I think the Phillies are going to be one of the favorites, certainly. But I think too, there's been some maybe baseball purists who don't like how many playoff teams are now in there.
Well, I was going to get to that with you because you called yourself, I think last time, more of a traditionalist, right? We talked about the rules changing and how I felt that that's certainly helped with the youth increase in participation because the quicker games, and that's definitely more appealing to youth players. Obviously, in your traditional sense, you wouldn't have this many teams making playoffs. You wouldn't have teams that have the records that some of these teams and these wildcard teams have making playoffs or having a chance to go on and win the World Series. But I know somebody that hasn't grown up watching baseball. I think it's only more exciting to have these teams in it where anyone can come in and can make a run. But there is something to be said. Obviously, everybody knows I'm a big soccer football fan, and at the end of the day in the Premier League, right, whoever's got the most points, whoever's won those games, they win. You don't get someone coming in and jumping. So I definitely see that, but I think from a perspective of watching the game, it makes it interesting going out and watching those playoff games. But what is your take on? Would you like to see less teams and those teams, that have done well, maybe got 100 wins plus winning it, or do you like the excitement of? It's almost like a new season going into this, time of the year in October and really going forward with it.
Yeah, it's definitely added more excitement toward the end of the season, because more teams are in it to fight for those wild card positions. I just don't think the solution was what they had, where it was basically you had that 1-game playoff and the wild card playoff. It was really kind of strange and. When you're playing baseball, you're so used to series, so that 1 game, it just kind of goes against everything baseball's about with the series aspect. So I think it's a good solution. I think having 12 teams. I mean, they were the in terms of professional sports, they had the lowest number of teams making the playoffs and the lowest percentage of teams making the playoffs. So, and I still think they're the lowest or one of the lowest. So I think, adding the wild card teams, I think it definitely helps. They need it. Baseball needs it, right? They need the attention. They needed to do something to mix it up to, have that spotlight on them. So, and especially when you're competing against the NFL, now that, the NFL has started, you need to do what you can to keep people engaged and keep people interested. So,
yeah, absolutely. What would you, any of the youth players around the country that we're a part of here at Steel Sports, or any other players? What are you telling the youth players out there, the U9, the U10, the U12 players? What should they be looking at for this playoff season? What's a couple of things that you think should stand out that they should be checking in on? Should they be looking at the way batters are at the plate? Should they be looking at some of the tactic elements from different managers and different teams? What stands out to you as our young players look at these playoffs in the next few weeks and can take something from them?
Fundamentals, really. I mean, who does what teams do the fundamentals the best? Because a lot of times that's what's going to win you playoff games. Because those playoff games can be so just stressful and very close. And, when you're doing the 162 game season, sometimes it's bombs away and, you know what I mean? So that obviously the fundamentals are a big part of it, but they really get put under the microscope in a playoff series. So who can move runners over? Some of those things that you might not see during the regular season become super important in the playoffs. The bullpen becomes very important, and so I think really just taking a look at those fundamentals and who really can get the little things done to get you across the finish line and get you those wins. Those are the things to look out for.
And who's your pick then? Who's going to win it all?
Oh man, put me on the spot.
On the spot.
I'm gonna say the Phillies. I'm gonna say the Phillies are gonna take it.
Okay. All right. So we'll see what that looks like in a few weeks, and that'll probably be episode 5 or episode 6. So we'll see how that prediction looks.
We may have a special guest join us during playoff time to talk some playoffs. So
I'm sure we can get a good person on. I think who you have in mind, that will be a great addition to the podcast to give us their take on it.
Yeah, let's switch gears. I know we mentioned your travel. You were in Europe. You got a chance to see some of the Paralympics while you were in Paris. You got to see Morgan Stickney.
did.
get a gold medal.
Awesome.
Talk about your yeah, talk about your experience out there.
It was. I mean, first, obviously we gave Morgan a big heads up on the first episode. Going into that, we know that she was participating in Paris in the Paralympics, 2-time gold medalist from Tokyo. I got to see her in her signature events, the 400 meters, and she absolutely crushed it. So anybody that hasn't seen the race, Google it, YouTube it. She absolutely crushed the race. New Paralympic record, only a couple of seconds off her own world record, won by a good 30 meters maybe. So it was great to see her win. It was great entertainment, the whole show that they put on before and after, music, like it really was a great atmosphere, and it was full. The stadium at the swimming was full. Great to see, and honestly, I was inspired. It was really inspiring to see these athletes obviously overcome so much, both physically, mentally, to perform at the level that they perform. It's just inspiring to see what they can do, whether it's on the track, in the field, in the pool, on the court, whatever it is. They're just absolutely awe-inspiring individuals. And I don't think people really, when they see them compete, necessarily register all the work that they have to do, not only to train to be at that level, but to overcome whatever disability they might have physically or mentally. And it's just absolutely awe-inspiring. I came away with so much respect and inspiration than probably I would have done if I'd just seen the Olympics in itself. It was great. And I said, fantastic to see Morgan do so well. Absolutely crushed it. She also won another silver as well. So she came away with a gold and a silver this time, and hopefully we'll have her on the show at some point in the future, and she can give us some more. So her take on the Olympics and the Paralympics and the whole show behind it. But Paris was great. Went to there. As I said, did some work for our parent company, Steel Partners, spreading the word of positive coaching and developmental relationships through the Steel Partner businesses and the work we do at Steel Sports. Great time. As I said, 6 countries, 10 days. Got to speak to a lot of people about how to develop leaders, how to communicate, how to develop positive relationships with colleagues and peers, and how to get out in communities and coach our kids, and put a kids first mentality around the world. So it was really cool. Got to go to the Germany-Hungary game.
Yeah.
Good friend of mine, Robbie Earle, who was traveling with me from NBC's own Premier League. Robbie Earle was traveling with us to do the town halls, and fortunate enough to get some tickets with him to the Germany-Hungary game. First time I've ever seen an international game, actually, and in Dusseldorf. Stadium was awesome. Game 5-0 to the Germans, so lots of goals. Really good experience. So it was fun. Definitely good. International break is always a little bit different from the Premier League that obviously I follow religiously, and it was good to get out to a game and mix with some good soccer fans out in Germany.
How did it compare to a game in England?
Very similar. Very, very passionate fans, both on the German side. Obviously, 95% of the stadium was German fans. I think probably 5% were Hungary. But I tell you what, those Hungarian fans did not stop singing for 95 minutes of that game, even though they were losing 5-0 in the game. And it was a game. It was a lot closer than that. 5-0, you think an absolute domination by Germany. It was not. Hungary had some chances, but Germany were pretty clinical. But yeah, those Hungary fans did not stop singing for 95 minutes, and the atmosphere in the stadium was really, really cool. So it was a good experience. Definitely would recommend getting out if you're going out to Europe. Get out to a game, whether that's a domestic game or an international game, and check out atmosphere, because I've been to a lot of live events here in the US, NFL, college, hockey, basketball, MLS, and the atmosphere is just different in Europe to those games, and it's definitely worth experiencing for people. So, but yeah.
And you're just in Chicago for the Premier League Fan Fest. I know
Yeah,
it's a little soggy out there and a little hot, but
it was
what was it otherwise?
it was definitely like the last day of summer and the first day of fall, as it pretty much was. Saturday got to go at the Fan Fest Chicago. Great job, great activation by the Premier League, NBC, the City of Chicago. Tons of fans. I mean, thousands of people showed up. And Saturday was beautiful. Weather was awesome. My beloved Liverpool won 3-0 against Bournemouth, so that was an added bonus for myself. As you said, Sunday it poured. It absolutely poured. Got soaking wet. Still have my Premier League mornings poncho somewhere that I brought back, and it was. I actually thought what surprised me the most, honestly, was when I was going there. I went with my wife, and when I was going there, I kind of thought, you know what, it's going to be really, not many people in particular. The first game was Brighton, Nottingham Forest, not a marquee game. Brighton obviously both doing well, 6th and 7th in the Premier League, but both doing well, but not a marquee game. So I kind of said to her, there might be a few less people, particularly with the weather, pouring with rain. He got there, it was full. I mean, there were thousands of people came out and watched the game. And then obviously we had the marquee game, the Man City Arsenal game, which was finished 2-2, which was a really great game. It definitely changed on the red card to Trossard and late in the first half, but really good atmosphere was just great. In between the live show, DJ was playing music, people were having fun, drinks, eating, waving flags, really good atmosphere. That's actually interesting because we just talked about going to American sports. It's a different experience than go to European sport. I don't think you could do that festival outside of the US. Because honestly, the fans, they've got people like different teams and stuff, but they all are there for a good quality experience. I think if you had tried to do that somewhere else, it just wouldn't match. Yeah. There'd be too many diehard fans, and things would go a little awry. But it was just a really good festival atmosphere. Lots of different activations. There was the Premier League trophy was there. They had the Golden Boot, the Golden Glove trophy. Barclays was doing something. One of the sponsors, and they had a little soccer pitch there that you could go on and play. They were doing this different activation. So it's just a really cool weekend. Chicago killed it. It's a great city, it was a fun time. Watching the games on massive screens in the park in Chicago.
Well, it's a great way to grow the game, grow the Premier League. I'm sure there's plenty of stats to show how it's grown in reach in America over the years, but it just continues to grow, and to be able to kind of take it city to city on tour is the perfect way to keep fans engaged and build your audience.
I mean, you can tell, these the people that show up to these events are really buying in and becoming fans of the Premier League. Whether they picked a team or they had a team or they grew up, whatever it was. But you can really tell that they're fans of the sport. And I don't think, I've been in the US now nearly 25 years, and I don't even think 10 years ago, if you'd have done this, you'd see. There must have been, in Nashville for the Fan Fest in Nashville in the spring, it was about 32,000 people over the course of the 2 days that went. I would guess that this is going to be more, just looking at the numbers, having been to both of those events. I would say that this is probably more, but it'll probably be close. But I don't think 10 years ago you'd have got 30,000 people to go out to Premier League soccer. So the way the game has grown, NBC Sports do a great job. Rebecca, Tim, two Robbies do a fantastic job, I think, introducing the sport for those that are new to watching it, but also giving enough technical ability to those that follow the game and keep them engaged as well. So they do an outstanding job as well. So I think it's definitely a growing sport here in the US, a growing following, and I know that's something the Premier League want to do. So I think they're on the right tracks with that. So.
You put me on the spot, so I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Just talking about the Premier League, and I know we're a handful of games in, but what's your initial take on the season? And I'm going to want you to give me a champion prediction at the end here. So what
Do
have
you
you
want,
seen so far?
you want the champion prediction for my heart or my head?
Yeah, that's
That would be my
yeah,
question, because they might be two different answers, I think,
that's fine. That's fine. I
these
mean,
days.
I think we know the hard one, but
Yeah. Um, I think the season's definitely been an interesting start. I think anytime you're coming off an international tournament in the summer, the first couple of months of the season, everyone's getting back into it. So I think it's really early. I think once we get to Christmas time, we'll start to see it shape out. But it's shaping out to how people expected. Arsenal, City, Liverpool. I think Chelsea's probably been a bit surprised. They started a little slow, but have really done well over the last few weeks, putting some back-to-back wins together. A lot of eyes on Brighton this year. Youngest coach ever in the Premier League at 31 years old. Got sent off yesterday, but he really has continued on what De Zerbi and before him Potter has done at Brighton. They have a really good succession plan at Brighton, and they seem to be playing the similar style. And so I think it was going to be interesting to see a 31-year-old going in, how Brighton would cope. They had a lot of success under De Zerbi and before that Potter, and he seemed to continue it on. They've had a decent start to the season. I think obviously all the time, the three new clubs that come up, how are they going to do? I think they're probably faring about what people thought. Some mixed results. They're definitely going to struggle this year. Wolverhampton sitting currently at the bottom of the Premier League is definitely, I think, a little surprise for people. I know they lost a couple of players in the summer, but good manager. And a good way of playing. So that's probably been one of the surprises, for me. Obviously, being a Liverpool fan, seeing life without Jurgen Klopp was going to be interesting. Arne Slot's come in, generally pretty good. Definitely poor last week against Nottingham Forest, but bounced back against Milan in the Champions League in the midweek. Won comfortably, I think, against Bournemouth. Definitely a different style. So I don't think you're going to see a ton of difference than the last couple. I think you're going to see Arsenal, City, Liverpool probably up there. Villa have strengthened this year. I think Chelsea will be up there. United have got the potential to be up there as well. Newcastle obviously put a lot of money in with their owners. So I think you're kind of looking at that being the top 7, 8. Brighton as well. What order? That's going to be the thing. I think once we get to Christmas, we'll start to see that. But in terms of champion, I would say probably my head will say I think Man City will win again. They have not started as well as I thought. They're certainly leaking some goals that they haven't done in the past. Obviously got a late equaliser yesterday, 98th minute against Arsenal, which, when we walked into the fan fest, I was asked who are you rooting for today, and I said a draw. I got what I was rooting for as a Liverpool fan, but I think City probably will still win it. They're going to take a lot to beat. I mean, what Haaland's doing, 100 goals and 105 appearances is just unheard of. You score a goal every 2 games. You're an excellent striker. He's scoring nearly a goal a game. It's absolutely unheard of. So I think that's going to be, if they keep him fit, they're always going to be there or thereabout, pending financial fair play charges and potential point deduction might change that a little bit, but we'll see how that pans out over the next few weeks as well. Heart, obviously, Liverpool are going to win it, so that's what I'm going with. Liverpool will be champions again. First season for Slot, definitely, 100%.
did and the margin was only 2 points last year, right?
Yeah,
City and
2
Arsenal.
points last year, 5
I mean,
points the year before.
yeah,
Those point deductions are going to be something, because if they get there's I've heard everything from an 8 to 12 point deduction to full relegation. I don't think that's going to happen, but if they get a 10-point deduction, which will be in the realm of what Forest and Everton had last year, it's going to be difficult for them to win it. You could still finish in the top 4 with that. Whether they'll win it or not, I'm not sure. And Arsenal, to be fair, have looked like they've matured under Arteta and can probably take them all the way this year, providing I think they keep some of their key players healthy. I think Rice has to stay healthy. I think the two centre backs have to stay. Gabriel and Saliba have to stay healthy. If they do that, I think they can challenge them. And then if you get a point deduction for City, it's gonna it could hand that title to Arsenal as well. But it doesn't matter because Liverpool are going to win it. So.
I was going to ask you about Aston Villa, and I mean, they were kind of a surprise last year getting a Champions League spot, but I mean, you'd have to say at this point, they are for real. I mean,
they are for real, and they strengthened. They strengthened well in the summer. Adding the striker up top, they're scoring goals. The concern I would have is they are leaking a few goals early in the season. They've had to come back from behind. They did against Everton. They did it this past weekend against Wolves as well, who are struggling. So, that would be my only concern. That plus the added midweek game of Champions League football is going to see have they got the squad depth to deal with that in the Premier League. You see a lot of these teams. Newcastle was the year before, right? They finished fourth, got in the Champions League and finished 7th, 8th. I know they had injury issues as well, but you do see that kind of consistently. The teams get into the Champions League maybe in that third or fourth, but have a great season, and then the added games when you're playing Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, where consistently really does take its toll on a squad. Although they've strengthened well, Villa, so I do expect them to be up there. I wouldn't shock me if they're not in the top 4 this year, depending on obviously how far they go in the Champions League.
Yeah. I think Arsenal's going to take it this year. That's my prediction.
What?
I'm just looking for parity, I just
yeah.
I just see City. Let's get some new blood in there.
Well, that is true. They've dominated, unusually so. Over the Premier League's not usually dominated by one team consistently. Although obviously United had a good run 10, 15 years ago, but you still had Arsenal winning a few. You had Chelsea then winning a few, and City have kind of gone on a bit of a run. Liverpool got close to them a couple of times, losing by a point, and could have changed that a little bit. But yeah, it would be nice to see a new winner, just as long as it's Liverpool. So
we'll see if I'm still co-hosting the show after that prediction.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. But shifting gears a little bit, obviously we talked the last show about Pochettino potentially being hired. We know now that has been done. Has been hired. I don't know about you, but what I talked about last time about was it going to be for a long term? Was it going to be seems like it's just a short term solution. So I don't know what your take is, on that hiring, but for me, it seems like they didn't do well in Copa, the US men's national team. Seems like a bit of a reaction. Doesn't seem like a long-term play. It's kind of get us through the World Cup. We don't want to be embarrassed in the World Cup. Let's have a good showing, which is great. But what's the plan? What's the long-term plan? These players that are, 13, 14, 15 that we see around the country playing, week in and week out. What is the motivation to see that pathway from them? Like, why was there no assistant coach brought in to work with Pochettino that would maybe be the successor that could take what he's going to do? He's an outstanding coach and tactically one of the best coaches out there. He's going to improve that team just because he's the coach. Is he going to improve it enough to be able to get to a quarterfinal, a semi-final of a World Cup? I'm not so sure he's got the talent around to do that, but he is by far an outstanding tactically and outstanding coach. My concern is what's the plan after that? Let's say the US do get to a quarterfinal in that World Cup and then lose and he's gone. What's the plan after that? And that's really, I think, something that US soccer they've fallen short on with this appointment. I'd love to have seen somebody in there as well, whether it be Durandula or somebody that would be able to have learned from him, learned over the last couple of years, then ready to step in and then take them on for, 2 cycles beyond that. I think that there's the long-term plan, obviously dealing as we do on a day-to-day basis in youth sports. I'd love to see that long-term plan for those youth players. He's not going to be putting things in place for the U14 national team or the U16 national team. He's focused on getting a good job at the World Cup in 2 years, and that's it. And I don't know if that's the best long-term solution for the US men's national team, but that's just my take. I don't know. What was your take now that it's been finalized?
Yeah, I mean, I have some of the same sentiments you do. I mean, I think there is some concern, but I also feel like I think you've looked at we look at contracts in the past, and it almost seems like they're just cyclical in terms of getting through the World Cup, and then it's another 4 years or another whatever it may be. Um, so maybe this is the best solution to feel each other out in a sense, to get him in there and see what he can do. And then, hopefully there are some good results and some positivity. And then, I mean, you would almost have to think that if some success comes, that it'll be a longer term play and that he's just not in it to get through the World Cup and then move on to something else. I mean, you would
You would
have to think it's a longer term play to get through at least a couple World Cups. You would think,
you would hope so, but I would be surprised.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
he's a top world manager. He's going to be looking at potentially the Manchester United job, the Real Madrid job, when Ancelotti's done, Ten Hag could be done, depending on how United do this year, Bayern Munich, we'll see how it works out with Vincent Company. Like he's in that level of coach. I just can't see him, if they do well.
yeah.
And honestly, I think that the issue you have is if he does well, it's like, and let's say semi-final, maybe it's a final, right? If he does well, what's the motivation for him to continue to come back in? It's like, well, I've done all I can. If he doesn't do well, he's going to damage his reputation, potentially for some other job. So he might want to get out there faster. So I don't know. I think he's a great coach. Obviously, now gives us two ex-Chelsea managers as the head of the men's and women's national team. But I would have. I would have liked to have seen him come in and say, yeah, I'm here for 2 years, but you know what? I'm building a backroom staff that is going to succeed me, that is going to put in place all the things we're going to do now in the next 2 years. We're going to be doing at the U18 team. We're going to be doing at the U16 team. We're going to be at the U14 team. And we're starting to build a real pathway, whether he's the head of it or not. It's almost a movement that he can start and he can head, but it then transitions over a long term. And I'm just not sure if we're going to get that, which I think will be unfortunate for all the young players that are out there for the US. But I guess time will tell. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but we'll see. I guess would you change that for? Would you trade that? I should say for a fantastic performance in 2026. Maybe we would.
I would.
I mean, I think people. I mean, 2026 is going to be awesome. I saw fans out there. This weekend in Chicago. Those fans come out in the US as well. 2026 is going to be a fun summer.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, and so last one for us to talk about that we wanted to talk about today, for particularly all of our youth players that are out there listening, is concussions. I know this is something that you're really passionate about. It's been back in the news with Miami Dolphins. Tagovailoa is obviously getting concussed, being out, not the first time. And I know, we've also seen a lot of the Guardian caps on players. What's been your take on that, and how the NFL are dealing with it, and what should our young players out there be looking at doing in other sports?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, player safety is a big topic for us, and very important to what we do as a company. But yeah, I mean, it's scary, when Tua is third concussion, and I mean another scary situation, and I mean that's just 3 concussions in the NFL. I mean, who knows how many other concussions he's had, whether it was at Alabama or in high school or whatever, wherever. But yeah, just I mean concerning. I think the NFL's definitely had safety concerns for a number of years now. That's really been put in the spotlight. But it's good to see. We mentioned the Guardian caps, and right now only a handful of players are actually wearing them in games. They were mandated for practices in the preseason, but the players weren't mandated to wear them in the regular season for games. So it was going to be interesting to see. Okay, well, how many players are going to wear these? And so you have had a handful of players wear them, and you wonder, is the NFL going to get to a point where they do mandate the players to wear them? And I go back to heck, when football started, they didn't wear helmets, and then they got leather helmets, and then they got the kind of what you see not today, but actual the hard helmets. and then adding the face mask. So, I mean, helmets have
There's been an
evolved over.
evolution. There's been an
Yeah,
evolution.
exactly.
You've got to think of it, you know.
You
You
got
got
to
to
get
think.
away from, oh, it looks goofy. Well,
Yeah,
if it saves your life, or does it really matter what it looks like? And
yeah. I mean,
um,
that's the important. Safety's got to be the top priority for the NFL. Obviously, everything that's in the media these days regarding CTE and seeing those things. And you said Tua has obviously had 3 concussions in the NFL. What would you have? Studies indicate 10% of all high school football players experience a concussion each season, not just once. They're playing 4 years. 10% of those players are receiving a concussion 4 times just in their high school career. Never mind then college, which is probably a little bit higher, and then in the NFL, players really have to make sure that they are. And the book does stop with the NFL. They have to take the lead. They're the organization that should be leading on this. We talk a lot about leadership with our athletes at Steel Sports, and they shouldn't be letting the players lead on this. They should be taking the initiative, taking the data, the science, the studies, and be saying, okay, this is what we think is the best to protect our players. And they should be taking that lead on that. Whether you can mandate everybody doing it, that's a whole legal question, but they should be at least out there in the media saying, no, in order to protect our players, this is what we recommend based on studies that we've done. I just don't see that a little bit from the NFL. And I'm not sure why. It's probably PR related, probably, legally an issue, but I'd love to see them out there saying, you know what, we want to protect our players. If these are the best things for our players, and I said, as you said, they do it in practice, they do it for that, but why not for those games as well, where that players are going at a million miles an hour. They're certainly going a lot more on a Sunday than they are on a Wednesday. So
yeah, I mean, you're some of the best athletes in the world, and the speed of the game, and the just the someone was describing it as like a car crash every tackle. Some of these tackles, it's just like, yeah, you want them to be as protected as they can. So we'll see what
absolutely.
happens.
Yeah, I mean, you do it at youth level, right? I mean, it's why they don't do tackle football at 6 years old. That's why soccer players wear shin guards. That's why, you wear helmets in lacrosse. I mean, it's about player safety, athlete safety first, and that's what it should be all the way up to the big leagues. You see it now more in baseball too, helmets. Bench coach with wearing helmets. You've got arm protectors. You've got taking care of yourself as an athlete so you can prolong your career, you can prolong your livelihood, and hopefully prolong your life as well at some point. So definitely something that the NFL should be leading on.
Before we wrap up, do you have a stat of the show for us?
I do. I was torn between two. I'm going to go with one instead, but the other one I was talking about is, we talked about soccer earlier. We did mention briefly, I mentioned Emma Hayes and the women's national team. Obviously, nothing significant going on for them in the last couple of weeks. But one thing I wanted to talk about, and I think it's worth talking about potentially in the future as well, is 45% of soccer youth players now are female players. In the next 5 years, that is projected to go more than 50%. So more than 50% of all youth soccer players will be female. So I think that that sport, we should really be looking at in more detail and how we can make it even more inclusive and from a training perspective for female athletes and what's best on that. So I thought that was an interesting statistic, but I didn't go with that, even though I told you. So my stat of the show is following up on your concussions, is that currently 1 in 6 is the number. 1 in 6 athletes who experience a concussion will have another one within 2 years. That's a really high percentage of athletes. So that's what I'm going to go with, given your work on concussions and talk on concussions there. I thought 1 in 6 athletes who experience a concussion will experience a second one within 2 years. And I thought that was certainly interesting that we talk about player safety.
Yeah, certainly makes it important to focus on it for sure.
Absolutely.
Wow.
All right. Well, great chatting again, Nathan. Look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. We'll get on, and I know that we're going to be having some really cool guests coming up in the next few weeks on the show. If people have comments, please feel to reach out to us directly, and we'll love to hear your thoughts on both the show and what we should be talking about here at the Steel Sports Show.
And be sure to follow us. Don't forget to follow us, subscribe. You can find us on all the major podcast providers. So we appreciate you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we will see you in a couple of weeks.